Hi everyone, Kat Roche here, USA Rugby Major League Rugby referee. Today I am bringing you a quick session on referee positioning. So we're going to talk about positioning at the four main areas of the game: scrum, line out and maul, breakdown, and goal line stand, as well as why you're choosing the position you choose on the field, how you got there, and more importantly, how you're going to get out of being out there. Let's get started. First thing we're going to cover today is positions that you can stand at the scrum. So, my great drawing here. We've got the red team against the blue team. Red team is on attack, blue team is on defense. So, there are two main positions as a referee that you can stand at the scrum. Here or here. So, some pros of standing, let's focus on the putting inside. Some pros of standing on this side is that one, you can manage the put in, so you can see if the nine's got a credible feed, you can stop the defensive nine from mucking about, and you can watch these binds and these shapes of the props really well. You've also got a good view of the back line on defense, so you can check if they're breaking early. Just a really wide picture of the field. Another benefit to being here, if the 8-man's going to pick, they're probably not going to run into you because the 9 is coming down that direction. So if we're on the putting inside, the question stands: do you want to stand in front of the 9s or behind them or maybe to the side of them? Well, I like to control the setup of the scrum, and so I'll usually say to the 9, I'm going to take the tunnel, I will step out. If you just take the tunnel and don't tell the 9 what you're doing, they're going to get really panicked because that's their spot and that's what they know what to do. So just let them know, 9, I'm going to take the tunnel, I'll step out when it's stable. You have your cadence, that's set, it's nice and stable, you're happy with how the scrum looks, you can step out backward, this direction, that 9 can put the ball in, and then you can follow them as the ball comes out. So, movement from this position. Once that ball goes in, you're basically going to follow your 9s down until the ball is at the back of the 8. You can still see the defensive line really well as you can manage that 9, the defensive 9, because you're right there. So, cons of this position, what can't you see? Well, you can't really see the angles of the scrums on the props on the opposite side. You have to run more. So the ball goes down and out, you have to cover all that distance while not getting in the way of these 16 players here. And if they pick this direction, 8-man pick, you now have a scrum in between you and where you need to be. So you're going to have to decide if you're going to try to follow that all the way around or you're going to cheat and run behind the scrum, potentially losing sight of something. So, pros and cons to that position. Now let's say we set up not on the putting inside. Pros of this, you've got a really great view of the props on the far side, which, you win some, you lose some. You're not in the way of the 9s, and you can look right at the 9s. So if you have an issue with your defensive 9, you can look right at him, or her, and they're looking back at you. Another pro is you have a really good physical presence for that defensive back line. You can turn, stand, hold your arm up, and look right at them. When you're hiding on this side, it's harder for the defensive line to see that you're there and actually judge, oh, she's gonna notice. So that's some pros of standing on that side. Cons, you're kind of in the middle of everything. So when the ball comes out, you're gonna have to make a decision on how to get out of being at there. So one of my favorite things that I think about in positioning is called your exit route. There's another term for it, but I'm not going to say it because it's not appropriate. But GTFO, OTW, get out of the way. Okay, so you need to know everywhere you're going to be on the field, how do I get out of being at here if I'm going to get run over by a player? That comes from a pro because I've gotten run over by players a lot. So, in this position, your exit route is going to be behind that flanker. If the 8-man's going to pick and run straight at you, you want to get behind the person that is most likely to be making that tackle. If you can get behind the person making that tackle, they will then come up and make the tackle, and you don't have to worry about it. So, exit route, you turn around, and then you come into when we talk about breakdown positioning, you'll come into a really nice position at that breakdown of the flanker on the 8. So that's your exit route. Now, if the ball comes out, it's at the 8-man's feet. You're standing in this position still. You want to chase after the ball, but you don't want to affect whatever play is happening on the attacking back line. So you're basically going to stand there and read what happens next. If they're going to play a little switch and they're going to attack right back at the channel, you're going to use that exit route again to get out. If they're going to play out wide though, you absolutely just hustle, get that ball in line running, follow it, and then arrive at wherever the next breakdown is. Good work, red team. Okay. So, those are our pros and cons to scrum positioning. You really have 2 options. You're going to choose which one's better for you. This also might change depending on where we are on the field, how that changes your positioning. If this is the touch line and the scrum's 5 meters from touch, you're probably not going to stand on this short side because 1, that's about 70 meters that you have to run when that back line tries to use all the space. And 2, it's just really crowded. And 3, you might have an assistant referee right here. So why would you have 2 people looking at the exact same side when you can share the responsibility? Same thing as if we consider if the same team's putting the ball in the scrum, ignore all of our backline players here, and the touchline is here, you might have to be on this putting inside, and you might have to trust that open field positioning, trust your exit lines. All of our backline players are on this side of the field now. And you've got an AR right in the middle that can watch this side while you move right there. So, position on the field matters. Now, let's say we've got an attacking scrum 5 meters from the goal line. So our goal line is up here. All of our lovely players are on side. Job. All right. What do you think there's a really high likelihood of happening in this area? I'm asking like you can answer. You can't really. You can at home. Please say it out to yourself. 8-man pick. So I actually played 8. This was my favorite area to be on the field because it was my time to shine. I got to pick the ball up from the scrum and score. I didn't score that much, but it's fine. So this is a really dangerous position to be in because your exit line, as we talked about, same thing, is going to be behind the flanker. But when you're exiting from a position, you're running shoulders straight out of the way as fast as you can because you really don't want to get hit by the player behind you, which means once you get out of the way, you're going to have to turn and about face. If that's our goal line, you could miss the grounding. So it's pretty dangerous to be choosing that position knowing you might miss the grounding. Now, if you know they're going to go out to the backs or you trust your speed, fantastic. You can choose that position. Though I probably would like to stand over here if we're at a 5-meter scrum and just really make sure I anticipate that ball's at the back and then shoot out so I'm in the best position to see everything in front of me. That's about it for positioning at the scrum. All right, let's talk referee positioning at the line out. So I've got my line out here. Our red team is on attack because their hooker's throwing the ball in. Blue team is on defense. They've got their hooker 2 meters from that 5-meter line and 2 meters from that line of touch, which is this imaginary line where the hooker is throwing the ball along. Both teams here have a receiver. A receiver is optional. If the attack does not have a receiver, the defense can still have one. If the attack has one, the defense does not need to have one. Receivers don't count as players in the lineout. Fun little fact. Okay, so as a referee, you've got about 3 positions that you can stand out at the lineout. A couple kind of merge into each other. So we've got our nice front of line out position. Pros and cons to this position. Pros, you're looking at everything. So you can see the whole line out, you can see down the tunnel, you can manage this 2-in-2 player. You can see the back line, they're really far away, but you can see them. You can see the attacking 9, plus you know the way you're gonna run is that direction. So you've got a nice clear path where you're gonna run. And nothing bad is usually gonna happen to you right here. Cons of this position, you are right on the touch line, which means, as we talked about at the scrum, you're gonna have to run really far. As well as when you start running, you're not gonna be able to see a lot of what's happening here, especially if they go to the back line or if they peel and they take it right up in that 15-meter channel. You're gonna have to find a way to loop down and get to that breakdown in time. Okay, but this is one of my favorite positions because you can also manage the gap at the front of the line out, as well as make sure the front lifters are being protected so nobody's taking out the lifter early. What you can't see is the back lifter. You don't really have a physical presence, as well as there might be an AR right here. As we talked about before at the scrum, if you have two people watching the same thing, you're wasting resources. So, another option at the line out is in the back. This is similar to our not putting inside of the scrum. You're kind of in the middle of everything. You've got a really good physical presence to manage that back line so they don't come up early. You have a really good view of the tunnel so you can see if that ball's been thrown straight. Your exit line is going to be incredibly similar to the scrum. You're going to go straight and out the back. You're going to hope that one of these two players is going to make that tackle and you're going to get behind it. So if the ball is thrown in and this player peels, catches the ball, and he's going to take it right up that channel, you're going to exit hoping somebody right here is going to make that tackle so you don't have this player running at you. Players running at you are not good. So, if the ball goes out to the back line though, you're gonna do the same as you do at the scrum. You're gonna hold your ground, you're gonna turn with the ball, and you're gonna wait for the attack to go past you, and then you're just gonna meet up at that next breakdown. We'll talk about breakdown positioning soon, I promise. So, a lot of good things about that position. What you can't see is you can't manage the front of the line out. You can't see what's happening to the front lifter at all. But if you've got an AR there, you've got it pretty well covered. Now, another position you can stand at is right about here. So this way, you've got a really good view of everybody in the line out, which means you can actually see if the front lifter is being taken out. You can see if the back lifter is being taken out because you can see all of the attacking players in the line out. You still have a good physical presence with the back line. You can still hold up your arm. Cons about this position is your exit line's a bit further. So you're gonna have to move faster to exit because your exit is still the same thing as it was. So as soon as that ball's in, you basically need to make a decision from this position on where you're gonna go. As soon as that ball's thrown, if it's thrown to the front, okay, I'm gonna move up into this flat position. You know, if it's thrown to the back, you're gonna move out wider and up a bit more. But I actually really like this position if I'm not in too quick of a game. If I'm in a game that's a bit slower, I can own this position because I know I can move fast enough that I can get out of the way. All right, next thing we're gonna talk about, it has a lot to do with lineouts, but is actually the lineout to maul transition. So teams can maul from anywhere on the field. It's their choice. Typically, you see them mauling as a defensive strategy when they're in their own 22 so they can secure possession and get a really nice deep kick out so they can get a bit more territory, a bit more room to breathe. Or inside their attacking 22 A maul is really hard to defend, which means it's a really great way to get over that goal line and score a try. We all love a maul try. I do. So, if we're inside the 22, it's a safe assumption that this team's probably going to try to maul. So, where's the best place to stand when a lineout's going to go to the maul? Well, you have to talk about what your process is at the maul. So you've got your lineout set up really well. You're going to make sure the throw is straight and it's contestable. If the defense knows a maul is coming, they're probably not going to contest it, but we still need to make sure the ball is straight enough that we still have credibility as a referee. So a good rule of thumb is if it's thrown on the inside shoulder of the jumper, it's always straight. If it's straight over the head and there's no contest, it's straight. If it's on the outside shoulder, it's never straight. Blow it up, no option. Again, you can be a bit more empathetic to whatever type of game you're in. I'm in a high school girls and it's a really windy day, I'm not gonna be a dick and blow all the not straight lineouts, especially if there's no contest. So, DBAD, don't be a dick. A great philosophy to live by as a referee. Back to the maul. So, this team's not going to jump. We're still making sure our throw's straight. The ball's coming down. I've got to make sure, almost simultaneously, that the attack and the defense are both legally forming this maul. So for the defense, I'm looking that we're not playing the player in the air, that we're not taking out a lifter. For the attack, I want to make sure we're not double banking, we're not obstructing. And we'll have more conversations like this at our maul training, but it's also important for positioning because you have to know that you have to see all of these things happening. So, if you're standing at the front of the line out, you can see those front lifters. You can see if the attack is obstructing their own jumper. You can't see the side of the maul at all. If you're in the back, you can see the back lifters. You can still hold that defensive back line because they can't come up until every player in the maul has crossed our line of touch, which is our 5-meter line here. So you can hold them back and you can make sure they're staying back. And you've got an AR watching the maul form from this side, which is fantastic. So inside the 22, I'm almost always standing at the back of a line out because I think a maul's coming and I want to be able to work a lot of angles around the maul. So our ball is gonna come in and all of our players are gonna form a beautiful maul. So let's say it goes to this nice inside jumper. Such a nice maul. Very nice. It's like a scrum. Okay. Say this ball goes to our inside jumper. As soon as I see where the ball is thrown, I'm gonna start moving because I wanna get really close to that maul because I wanna be able to manage it. So I start coming in, maul is forming here. I'm going to immediately work hard and see what I haven't been able to see, which is this side of the maul. So as that maul forms, I'm gonna swing around. I'm gonna look at everybody's starting positions on this side of the maul because as you know, you can't change your bind in the maul. So I wanna see what everybody looked like when they started. It'll give me a better idea of who's legal, who's not, who's through the middle, and who's trying to swim around the side. So once I've worked to this side and I can see all of these players, I'm gonna start working to find the ball. So if the ball is on this side, okay, now I'm gonna work back. Now the maul is ideally going to the goal line at this point. When you're positioning yourself around the maul, you're always just gonna keep trying to work in this little pendulum motion around the back. So you can keep managing, you can keep everyone legal, and more importantly, you can see everything. What you don't wanna do is get static at a maul and get stuck. Now, an important thing when we get to breakdown is we've got our friend, the 9. Everybody loves the 9. So our little 9's gonna be here, playing at the back of the maul, because they're gonna be the one to pass it out if it's static. The most dangerous place to be, arguably, on a rugby field is between the 9 and the 10. Why? Because the 9 really likes to pass to the 10. And when the 9 makes those passes, they tend to be really far, which means they tend to be really fast, and they hurt when they hit you in the face. Again, speaking from experience. So the 9-10 channel you really want to stay out of. You're moving around the back of the mall and you see that 9 coming in, getting ready to dig for the ball. The best place to be, I think, is where you started on this side. So now you're basically going to be stuck between here and here because that 9 has now occupied their zone. Now you don't want to be too close, because if the mall stops and the back player who has possession of the ball is going to come out into that channel, you do not want to get into their way. Probably the second worst place to be on a rugby field is in front of a forward with the ball, right in front of the goal line. Terrible place to be. So you want to stay far enough. You still want to keep moving. You want to have eyes on the ball, because as we talk about goal line, most important thing is to be able to see that ball being grounded. So movement at the mall, really important. Finding the ball and not just standing in one spot. Always keep moving. Okay, we're now ready to move on to our goal line stand. At the goal line, the most important thing is being able to see the ball when it crosses the goal line, if it's been scored, if it's been knocked on, whatever. As soon as you're there, points matter. Is it try time, yes or no? So the most important thing is being in a position where you can see the ball being grounded or not. The second most important thing at the goal line is making sure if these blue players have stopped the ball from being scored, that they did it legally. So making sure that they're onside or they're not disrupting this ruck illegally. So you've got a couple of positions at the goal line, and the quick answer is you're going to use all of them, and all of them are good or bad in certain situations. So you've got this one. Now I know this looks like the stupidest position to stand, which is fair. But what do you have a really good view of? You have a great view of that try line. If that ball is going to be grounded right there, you're going to see it. You can clearly see if those defensive players are onside because you're standing right there. Now, what's the bad part of positioning yourself here? Well, this player wants the ball and this player wants to tackle that player. And when you're in the middle of it, that can really hurt. So what's really important about this position at the goal line is knowing your exit route. How are you going to get out of being at there? And I'm telling you, it's straight through 2 defenders. So we'll do a bit more work about this on the pitch, but you always have to know your exit route if you're ever going to stand in this flat, I like to call it flat attack position. You're on the attacking line, you're nice and flat. You always have to know your exit route. Okay, you can also stand back here. I call this the lazy guy glory position. Guy being non-gendered. You can be lazy girl glory position. Why is it a glory position? Well, if this player comes in and scores a try right at your feet, you look amazing because the try's been scored at your feet. The bad part is you can do no officiating from this position. So this is a really useful position. You will find yourself here, but don't just come here and stay and wait for that try to be scored. You still have to work around the ruck and find a way to make sure that these blue players are defending legally. Another position you'll find yourself in is what I like to call saddle or jockey or chariot. There's a number of things kind of all related to horses. So you're going to be behind the ruck. You're going to be behind the players behind the ruck, so the ones that are probably going to pick and go. This is a safe position because the people who have the ball are in front of you, which means they're running that way, which means you're really not usually going to be in the way. The bad part about this position is you can't really judge the ruck because you're straight behind it. You don't have much of a presence for this back line because you're standing behind the people they're focused on, because they're focused on the ball, they're focused on the ball carrier, so they don't really care about you back here. I would argue they don't really care about you anywhere, but they care about you more when you're in their way. So that's why you stand in their way. But this is a great position if you don't want to get hit. What's key about this is we're going to use this as a transition position. It's a great place to be temporarily while you move to the next position. So let's go to the field. So a bit more about goal line positioning. I've got my goal line here. I've got my defenders are all these blue cones. Now, they're pretty close together, as they would be at the goal line, particularly if this is our ruck and we've got forwards picking and going here. So we talked about 4 positions, really. Flat attack on either side of the ruck, jockey behind the ruck, and our lazy glory position of seeing the try. Now we're going to talk about the quarter turns. So every phase, think about the ability to take 1 quarter movement. So if I'm in flat attack, I can either move into the glory position or into my saddle. So if I'm in my flat attack and they pick and go, I've got my exit line between these 2 players. They pick, I go into this position. If there's not a grounding, I can now move 1 quarter turn. So I'm going to look up and judge. If I think they're going around this way again, my quarter movement is going to be back. I'm not going to turn that direction, I just did that so you can. It's going to be back on this side. Now if I think they're going the other way, my quarter movement is going to be on the other side, so I've got the same picture of that goal line, the defensive team, and the ability to see the grounding. But what I'm not going to do is move a whole half and try to get into saddle. So it's really important to read the defense. It's important to read the attacking team when you're on this side. If you're on this side, you see the attack, you can see which way they're going. If the ball is on this side of the breakdown, they're probably going to pick and go this way. If the ball is on this side of the breakdown, they're probably going to pick and go on the outside, and I want to be on the outside. So, you're in your defensive line, ball's there, I see they're going to pick and go. If there's another pod of players, I never want them to be in front of me. So I'm going to move out even more if there's a pod of players right there. Because yes, they could pick and go, or they could pop it to the pot of players behind me, and I want to be outside of them. So I'm outside, they pick and go, I transition in, there's no grounding, I look up, ball's on this side, I'm going to transition back out again, on the goal line again, pick and go, back in, ball hasn't been grounded yet, but now the ball's on the other side. I think they're going to go to the other side. So I transition out, flat attack, back in. Now say I transition out again, and I think we're going to go, but now there's a wing and somebody else set up on this side. I see the 9s fixing to go out. I'm going to move into my saddle, and then I can run out. When they come up to the line, I'll be in flat attack again. So as you see, you're going to use all of these positions, and it's okay if you get stuck in one at a certain point. The key in your mind is always keep moving and always keep working hard to find the best position. If you're not in it, work hard to get there. So as they take it in, you're going to move around the clock each phase to find the best place to be so you can judge the offside line, judge the legality of the blue team, as well as see that grounding and be in a really great spot. Welcome to the bread and butter of the positioning session, the breakdown. This is the most important because you have the most breakdowns out of all of the situations you're gonna find in a game. You could have 270 rucks in a single game, which means 270 times you're gonna have to decide where you're standing. So I've got my ruck set up. This is a nice static ruck. We have a good defensive line. We've got our 9. Our 9 has the attack set out to the right, maybe a winger on this side. So where are you going to enter at a ruck. We toss around the term enter at the 45. What does that really mean? So the 45 is an angle, it's about 45 degrees. Coming into the ruck, this is a great position where you can see everything happening. You can see the tackler getting out of the way. You can see the arriving players. Do they enter from their gate? Do they enter on their feet, or are they off their feet? You've got a really great picture of everything that's happening in that breakdown. Now, you don't want to hang out in that spot forever. You always want to keep moving to the next best spot. So you can use, we've got our saddle position here as well. So you're behind the ruck. It's a great transition position. The 9's either going to pass right or left, and you're not in the way for any one of those. We've also have our flat attack position, same as at the goal line. A great position to have a good presence. You still see this side of the breakdown. Problem is you've got the attack behind you, and they're gonna try to be coming the same place you are. So you have to have an exit strategy. Again, your exit strategy is gonna be between two defenders. So ideally, you're gonna run forward, and they're gonna close the gap behind you and tackle whoever is coming through that gap. I love the flat attack position, but it definitely requires some intentional practice so you don't get run over by players running full speed at you. Now, where you stand at the breakdown has a lot to do with how you enter. So, say we're coming in from a breakdown here. You arrive into the breakdown, the tackle happens in front of you, and you look at the 9. The 9 is your key to success at a breakdown, because the 9 is the one getting the ball out, and they're the one that are going to tell you where they're going. So as Shakira said, hips don't lie. The 9's hips are never going to lie to you. So check it out. Which direction do they look like they're fixing to go? If your 9's angled right, they're probably going to pass it to the right, which means you can go from, after everything is okay, you can keep working and start running that direction. So when the ball is passed out, you're already ready to where they're going. Now, if you come in at the 45 and the 9 looks like they're coming back this direction, the worst place to go is in front of the 9 when they're passing the ball. So you're gonna stand here, and that's when you're gonna transition into our flat attack, because you don't wanna run between where the 9 is passing the ball and their intended target. So you wanna stay in this area. Now, you don't wanna stay at the 45 because your exit route is too far. If you stay at the 45 and they pass the ball out, you have at least 4 or 5 steps to get to your exit route. And that's way too many. A player's gonna run you over. So you wanna get to a place where you've got 1 step, 1 or 2 steps to your exit route to safety, which means you're gonna transition from that 45 into our flat attack. So now you're at the flat attack because the 9 is fixing to go back this way. When the 9 passes the ball out, you're gonna move up through your exit route. Defenders are gonna come out. Second tackle is gonna be right about here. Now, you're gonna just circle right back down, and now you're at the 45 again. The 9's gonna be here, and say the 9's now fixing to go right. You're gonna stay up right at that flat attack again. Ball's gonna go out. You're gonna step through if you have to. If it's a nice long pass, you can just turn and run with the pass. Okay, so now we're coming in from this direction, and I'm gonna ignore all this stuff that I drove. And now, you're coming in from this direction. We've got another breakdown. You check out the 45, the 9's going out to go right again, so you're gonna keep going, and it just goes like that for about 80 minutes. Key to this is your 9. Where are they gonna go? Now, what if you get to a breakdown and the 9 isn't there yet? You've got a massive issue. Because if the 9 isn't there, they've gotten caught up, which usually means they're right behind you and they want to shove you out of the way because they need to get to their ball. One of the key things you know about nines is they all secretly want to be referees. That's why they run our lines. A top level 9 is going to run the same lines that a referee is going to run. Why is that? Because they want to get to the breakdown as quick as possible, just like we do, because we want to see everything. They want to get there quick so they can get the ball out. So if you arrive at a breakdown at that nice 45-degree angle and you've got no 9, you want to get out of the way. So you're going to go almost into that saddle, or at least a deeper 45, because the 9 is probably running that same line. And if you stop suddenly at the 45 like you're supposed to find out where you need to go, that 9's going to shove you in the back, and then you're going to be rattled because you didn't expect it. But if there's not a 9 at your breakdown, you should enter panic mode and you should try to get out of the way, because I guarantee the 9's coming, and they're probably coming right behind you. Thanks to everyone who watched along, covering the 4 main areas of referee positioning in the game. Stay tuned for our next in-person training, which will get the content out online as well. That's Breakdown on May 6th at Marymore Park at 9 a.m. We've got 5 more trainings as part of our series, and we hope to see you there.